I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
Take a deeper look at the destinations that we're visiting as tourists, and to always make sure that we see these places, that we remember that these places are other people's homes. And looking beyond the kind of traditional narratives, looking beyond the cliches to get at some of the deeper, richer, and more meaningful stories and activities and sites that you can explore in the city. So yeah, that's when I was coming up with my list of 5 things, that's where I'm coming from.
That is today's guest, travel journalist Paige McClanahan, here to share her top 5 unexpected things to do in Paris. Paige is the author of The New Tourist, Waking Up to the Powers and Perils of Travel. She has been a journalist for the New York Times, and her thought leadership on sustainable and ethical travel has led to several TV and radio appearances on the likes of the BBC World Service, ABC News, NPR, and many others. In this episode, you'll discover one of Paris's secret neighborhoods worth spending time in and how to spend the perfect day there. You're going to experience authentic North African culture without leaving Paris, hear about 3 incredible destinations in France worth visiting, including a lovely alternative to the overcrowded French Riviera. You'll get tips for traveling in France like this.
2 words, honestly. Bonjour and au revoir. Okay? And it's even more than please and thank you. You need to say hello and goodbye. And I see this so often is like I'm in a cafe or I'm in a shop or something, and there's an Anglophone, whether American or British or Canadian, knows, an English speaker in front of me in line at a bakery, and they just walk up and they're like, can I have a baguette, please? Or whatever, can I have a croissant? And it's like, oh, the person might say bonjour, and then they say, can I have a croissant? And you're like, oh no, okay. If someone says bonjour to you and you don't say bonjour back, that is a big, 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 big no-no.
And loads of other France-related travel goodies coming your way right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, letting me bring a little travel in France into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, and I am so excited to have Paige McClanahan here as a guest. You can check out her website, PaigeMcClanahan.com, to learn more about her work. She's been living in France for 7 years and living outside of her home country for over 17. And today's show isn't just about finding the hidden spots. It's about understanding Paris as it is now, as a living, breathing city where immigrants are shaping the culture. And sometimes by default, I mention alternative destinations as an add-on to the Paris recommendations. You could talk about alternative destinations within a city and also within France itself. You'll get 3 of those. And I think just by default, sometimes those places offer an easier place to connect with locals who perhaps aren't as jaded by tourism. And statistically speaking, you may visit Paris one day if you haven't already. It is the 9th most visited city in the world, last year at least, according to Euromonitor. And although you will get recommendations specific to Paris, there are some overarching concepts in this episode that perhaps can offer a bit of a template for tackling some of the other popular cities that get a flood of international visitors that you may find yourself in one day. Perhaps, again, you're in now. By the way, in the outro, I'll share the top 3 most visited cities from this list. So see if you can guess them as a sort of a background fun little game you can play while you're listening to this. And on the back end, I will also share a shout out from a listener who is coming from Penang, Malaysia. Their resilience really inspired me. I'll also share a French quote for living in the moment from one of the great French philosophers. All that coming on the back end. Don't forget, zerototravel.com/newsletter. Free to sign up if you want to join the community off the pod. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Paige. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. And I will see you on the other side, my friends. Cheers. Paige McClanahan, welcome back to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. She's back in travel, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Jason. It's very good to be here.
This is the 3rd time we're recording, maybe 4th. Last time we talked about your book, The New Tourist, Waking Up to the Power and Perils of Travel, which was fantastic. I was just leafing through my dog-eared copy, and I thought I'd mention it because, if you just want to briefly summarize what the book's about, I know we're not talking about that today. We're going to do the 5 unexpected things to do in Paris, which is you living there and speaking French and having been there for many years. Totally trust your judgment. And then we're going to talk about some other places in France. But I just thought, if people want to listen to a companion episode about your book, you can tell them just a quick snippet about that and they can go find it in the feed if they want. Yeah.
Well, cool, Jason. Thank you for the book shout out. I wanted to write the book as a sort of an extension of the journalism that I was doing, looking at tourism and travel. And for 5 years, I was living in a little village in the French Alps that, where tourism is really the lifeblood of the local economy and also kind of the social life of the village. And I just saw how tourism could be at once a really positive force for the community and also, a challenging, potentially sort of damaging force if we didn't control it right. And so that experience living in a tourist town and also my experience as a journalist reporting on the challenges of tourism, in different places in Europe and around the world, I wanted to sort of go deeper and tell some stories and bring people on a kind of an adventure with me to explore these questions, because I think more and more people are asking themselves, what is this thing that we do called tourism? Should we be doing this? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? How do I navigate this? These were questions that I was asking myself and that I heard other people asking themselves. And I thought, let me dig into this and let's see what's there. And ultimately, I think tourism is a really powerful force, and that can be really constructive, but it's all in the how, right? How we do it. So digging into, the book, we go to Saudi Arabia, we go to Cambodia, Hawaii, Amsterdam, Barcelona, the French Alps, lots of places. I hope it's a fun ride and a fun exploration of some of these questions.
Awesome. Well, I love the book and the paperback is out, so I thought we would mention it. And if all of that sounds interesting, we do unpack that in the previous episode we recorded. But today we're talking destinations. These are some of my favorite episodes to record. And I always like to find the experts that are familiar with a place as a local would be. But there is something also about the immigrant/expat perspective where you kind of get the fresh eyes on the culture. And then there's the curation aspect of you being a travel journalist and having been in travel and kind of understanding your taste as a traveler, but also wanting to share places that aren't necessarily, you said it best before we started recording. So I almost want you to repeat that sentence. You wanted to kind of get beyond the typical baguettes or something. How do you want to frame this up? But tell me how you put together this list. At the end, what are people going to walk away with?
Totally. Well, so I'll say I've lived in France for 7 years now, 5 years in the French Alps, and now 2 years in Paris. So, I've lived here long enough to get to know it and to explore lots of different corners of the city. I'm still discovering it. And, I have this experience of coming to Paris with this image of like the Paris that we all kind of dream about and mythologize, right? And, I've lived this experience of discovering the place as a resident, with my kids in the public schools and taking the public transit and, navigating the sort of the tax system and the public healthcare system and everything. So what I love to bring to discussions about Paris and and conversations with friends or interviews like this is sharing a little bit of that perspective. Let's get beyond, and it really ties in with what I was kind of talking about and encouraging in the book, is to take a deeper look at the destinations that we're visiting as tourists, and to always make sure that we see these places, that we remember that these places are other people's homes, and looking beyond the kind of traditional narratives, looking beyond the cliches to get at some of the deeper, richer, and more meaningful stories and activities and sites that you can explore in the city. So yeah, that's when I was coming up with my list of 5 things, that's kind of what I had, that's where I'm coming from.
I don't always like to speak for the audience because to each their own, but I'm pretty sure that what you just said is music to everybody's ears. I like having the deeper, richer, kind of past the cliche type of experiences. So this is going to be perfect. And I don't know how you want to kick this off, if you did this sort of like not your number 5 to your number 1, a countdown, or if you just kind of put together this list. How do you want to do this?
Ooh, okay. I kind of started with the one that is closest to my heart and the place, like my favorite corner of Paris. So I've got basically like 2 places, 2 kind of themes, and 1 just like bonus for fun. I don't know if that.
Okay. All right. Let's dive in then. I'll let you take the lead.
Okay. So the first place is very close to my heart. I'm sitting just a few hundred meters from this place right now, and it's the Parc des Buttes-Chaumont. It's this park. So I live in the 19th arrondissement in Paris, in the upper northeast corner of the city. This is a corner of the city that is really not on most tourists' kind of to-do list, but it's a really rich neighborhood, very diverse neighborhood, lots of immigrant communities here. And right in the middle of this neighborhood, we have the Parc des Buttes-Chaumont, which is one of the biggest parks in Paris, and really sort of just hilly and kind of not very landscaped. It's kind of natural and wild. There's like a pond in it. It used to be a quarry in the 19th century, and it was like a dumping ground for horse carcasses. Sorry, that's probably not selling it very well. But then they transformed it. And what I love, they transformed it, more than 100 years ago into a park. And what I love about it is it's just this little oasis of calm right in the middle of a busy city. And you can really explore and get lost. And then one of my favorite things to do in the Buttes-Chaumont is to go to a bar. There's this gay bar called Rosa Bonheur that's right at the very top of the park. You get a beautiful view over Paris, and it's just a fun, lively place. You can go there, I go there with my kids sometimes in the evening just to get a drink. It turns into a pretty lively gay bar later in the evening. They actually keep the park doors open on that side of the park, so you can go. So, come up to the 19th arrondissement, go for a walk around the Jourdain neighborhood, which has lots of fun cafes and boutiques. Go for a stroll in the Buttes-Chaumont. You won't see many tourists. You'll see a ton of Parisians out walking their dogs, having a picnic, going for a jog, playing ball with their kids, have a drink in the Rosa Bonheur, and just kind of soak up this, this is everyday Parisian life, really. And it's a beautiful spot.
Awesome. Okay. You'll have to give us this written list so we can get all the French words properly annotated in the show notes. But, you want to show up in sort of like a neighborhood, but oftentimes you don't know where to go. But that idea of just showing up in a particular neighborhood and getting to submerge yourself in sort of that pace of life. There's a little bit to do, but it's not overwhelming. You're not trying to run to this museum and that museum. It's just kind of, like a local neighborhood.
And that's, the days that I've really enjoyed in Paris, or when I have, friends or family visiting Paris, I'm trying to sort of coach them on what to do. I feel like the best experiences are really when you just kind of let's go for a walk and let's kind of follow our noses. And of course we want to see some, important works of art, or, go see some classic monuments or whatever, there's leave time for that too. But you can also, just walk around, just explore, let yourself be guided. It can be a really rewarding and very authentic, as complicated as that word can be, authentic way to explore the city. And And if you don't want to find yourself in tourist crowds, and you want to have a nice moment and kind of get a little glimpse of life as a Parisian, come up to the Parc des Bouts de Chaumont. And there are a couple of really nice bakeries too, right on one on either side of the Bouts de Chaumont. I can put those in the notes that I would definitely recommend, because I was surprised at how many bad bakeries, sorry Paris, there are in the city, but there are some absolutely exceptional ones. So it's worth doing a little bit of research. So in the notes, maybe I'll give you the names of my two favorite bakeries around the Parc des Bouts de Chaumont.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'm
so
always
get a
hesitant.
sandwich, have a picnic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always hesitant to include the notes. I always want, I include them because I want people to find these places when they go, but I also don't want people to peek because they don't get to hear the background of what, then you just see like a written list. So I think it's
okay. So should I say? Okay, I'll say.
No, you should send it over for sure.
Okay.
Because we want people to find, because all these French names, unless you speak French, they're probably going to get lost.
This is going to go in one ear out the other. Yeah.
For me, but I do love before we move on to the next one, that idea of having just like a couple points of interest or recommendations, like you mentioned. If you throw in a bakery or this bar you mentioned, you got the park. It's like you can kind of spend a whole day in an area. But, you can have a little mission, but not a big one. Maybe you hit one or two places. All right, you're going to go for a stroll in the park. But other than that, it's just sort of like a wide open day. And I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Having a little bit of structure to it, but then also leaving a lot of space and time for exploration or just chilling or,
Okay.
Totally.
Well, I'm sold. I'm gonna pay you a visit there.
Okay. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Let's go for a drink. Rose of Bonheur. Yeah.
All right. Okay. What do you got next?
Okay. So the second one, this is where I like to sort of splurge, indulge myself a little bit, have a little moment of self-care. There is actually a hammam on the south side of the city and just south of the Seine, where you can go. It's attached to the Grand Mosque of Paris, this beautiful building that was inaugurated more than 100 years ago with a garden inside. So go down to the Grande Mosquée de Paris, the Great Mosque of Paris. Pay, I think it's like a €2 or €3 entry fee to explore the mosque, which is beautiful and really peaceful. And there's this beautiful garden, and you can see the architecture and learn about the sort of the Arab history of the city, which is significant. And then just across the street, there's a beautiful restaurant and there's a hammam. So there's this, the restaurant where you can get a couscous and your Moroccan mint tea and little sort of delicious little pastries. And then there's the hammam. I'm afraid the hammam is for women only. So sorry, guys, you can go enjoy the restaurant and the mosque. But the hammam is fantastic. And you feel like, I've been to a hammam in Tunisia before, and you walk in and you feel like you are in North Africa. And it has a series of rooms with, and you can sign up for a massage. You can get like a body scrub. They have all sorts of different treatments that you can sign up for, but it's full, it's completely women only. You pay for the entry fee. You go in and it's all these different series of rooms with a beautiful sort of North African architecture, and the hot room, the cold room, or the searing hot room with a freezing cold bath in the middle of it. And you can go and just sort of lounge and have a chat with a girlfriend, have a mint tea, and just sort of like pamper yourself and enjoy the time in the hammam, and then come out. And it's just a way to have a really rich, it feels like a real cultural experience there. And of course, and the women behind the counter speaking Arabic to each other, it feels like a really rich cultural experience, right? Very much in the heart of Paris, that feels at once very Arab, very Muslim, right there across from the mosque, and very Parisian and very French, because one thing that has really struck me as a resident of Paris is just how really deeply diverse this city is. And that's something that, I feel like our image of Paris as, I'm American, obviously, as Americans, like looking over the Atlantic, you don't think of Paris as a really diverse, or I think a lot of people don't think of Paris as a really diverse city. And I've really seen that, and going and indulging in a hammam and exploring the mosque and eating at this restaurant. It's just a lovely way to kind of celebrate that.
Yeah, I love that. We get a bit of the same here in Oslo, where I live. People have a perception, but there's a big immigrant population, and it is a part of the fabric of this city. So if you go to this neighborhood, Groenland, you can get all kinds of ethnic dishes. Like I've eaten Turkish there, and Yemen, eaten at a Yemen restaurant before, and all, Indian, all this stuff. And yes, I think there can be a tendency to show up in a place like Paris and think, well, I'm going to eat French food and French bistros, and that's all you kind of have. But this is a huge part of the living city of Paris now, right? So you'd be missing a huge part of what Paris actually is. Instead of, glossing over that, why not dive into that?
Exactly. I mean, this is French culture. This is Parisian culture, right? It is, it is very much part of the fabric. I mean, when I go to the local market, just here in my neighborhood, I would say probably half the people behind the stalls, like selling the fruit and vegetables and meat and seafood and everything, are speaking Arabic to each other. It's really like the Arab presence here. And of course, this is, let's say it like this is a legacy of French colonialism in North Africa. It's a really rich and very present part of the city. And I think it's one that it's pretty easy to miss as a visitor if you're going to, the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower and the Musée d'Orsay, and you're taking a boat ride on the Seine, which, I've done all those things. They're all wonderful things to do. There's also so much more to discover if you kind of go a little bit deeper, if you look a little bit beyond the surface. And then if you can, you start talking to people and you're learning about the Arab experience here in Paris. And a French friend of mine who has an Arabic background, she talks, she's told me a lot about the discrimination that she's faced. Issues of race and discrimination are really active here in France. And I think, let's lean into that. Let's learn about that and let's engage with that. Let's not pretend that it doesn't exist. But this is, visiting a place like the hammam and the Grand Mosque of Paris are ways to be curious about that and stay open to these different narratives, which I think are really important and also really rich and interesting to explore.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop. Now, back to the show. Wow. I'm already ready to book my trip to Paris. Already ready. Can I say that? Okay.
Okay, so those are my two places. So the Parc des Buttes-Chaumont and the Hammam and the Grand Mosque of Paris. And now there are two kind of themes that I want to talk about that I want to recommend. The first one is
I'm hoping one of them isn't mimes.
No.
Okay.
No.
Dodge a bullet there.
The first one, I'm going to do a little shout out to my most recent and actually my last story in the New York Times, which ran in June. And it's a little story about the revolutionary history of Paris. And so there's a free app that you can download. It's called the Parcours Révolution, which literally means like revolution trail. So the city of Paris, a few years ago, was inspired by the Freedom Trail in Boston. You can go to Boston. So they were inspired by this, and they wanted to create a sort of a walking tour of Paris that would help people understand the history of the French Revolution and how this history is still very much present in the city today. And so I wrote this story and, about kind of different, the app and different things you can see on the app. And to do it, I walked around with the historian, the lead historian on the project, who took me around and showed me some sites. And it was really fascinating talking to him. Because I feel like, in America, the story of the American Revolution is pretty raw, right? It's the king was dominating us, and we like threw off the monarchy and we set out, on our own 2 feet and yay, America, right? And I think people see the French Revolution. I think Americans, like, it's easy for Americans to see the French Revolution as like the French equivalent of that. And like, yeah, they killed their king and queen, right? Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, they cut off their heads. The people who took over from them, it was really complicated. Let's say, they instituted this reign of terror and, sent 17,000 people to the guillotine, right? And so this historian who's describing this to me, it's like the French Revolution was at once this time of joy and emancipation, but also intense fear and paranoia, because anyone who was seen to be at all sympathetic to the former monarchy, boom, off with your head. And there was not, so it was a really, really intense, deeply troubling, incredibly tumultuous time in French history. And you can see this, and sort of like on the app, you could just walk around. So it's a fun thing. You can download the app and you could just like have it out as you're exploring the city, because there are markers. I think there are like 120 different markers all over the city. So it's not like, you can make yourself a little walking tour and explore it that way. Or you can just kind of have it on your phone, and as you're out and about doing other stuff, you kind of check it out and see, what stops might be in that area that you're around. But like in front of the American Embassy is now the Place de la Concorde, which at the time was the Place de la Révolution. And that's where they had the guillotine, where, literally a stone's throw from the American Embassy today was where Louis XVI had his head chopped off, and Marie Antoinette had her head chopped off. And Maximilien de Robespierre, who was like one of the lead figures in the Reign of Terror that followed, had his head chopped off. And Olympe de Gouges, this woman who wrote the first like Declaration of the Rights of Women, inspired by the Declaration of the Rights of Man, had her head chopped off by the people who took over after the king. So it's like, and it's right there in the middle of the square. And then the Bastille, which is where there was the fortress that the angry Parisians like attacked in a mob that kicked off the revolution on July 14th, 1789. You can go see today. It's like a busy kind of roundabout and metro station, but you can see on the ground, like they've put little metal markers to outline the actual trace of the original fortress. So there, like this history is really alive and really very, if you just kind of know where to look, you can really see a lot of the traces there. So it's just another way to kind of look beyond the surface and engage with, this kind of complex history.
Yeah. We'll link up to the app. It sounds like a cool companion piece to kind of have as you go around, just to be able to, like you said, scout out the history nearby. And can you imagine just, a guillotine, like that scene, that living in a time like that? It happened so long ago, but not that long ago, that you feel so removed from it. So when you hear that history and then you're standing in a place where something like that happened and literally heads rolled, it's just like, I don't know.
And at the time, the guy who invented the guillotine, who's actually like, it's one of these, inventions named after the guy whose name was Guillotin. He put it forward as like, this is a more humane way to kill people. Because, imagine, like, think of all the different ways they had to like kill people, and like, and it was kind of like, this is actually, because compared to hanging, which you could sort of hang there for a while before you die, this is
drawn and quartered. That was another one.
This is an instant. So it was like, this is the more humane method to, to do an execution. So at the time it was seen as this humanitarian innovation.
Wow.
It's
all about context.
It's all about context, but yeah, Matt, and you can visit I write about this in the story and it's on the app, but the conciergerie, which is, it's this sort of like ancient medieval castle on one of the islands in the Seine. And it served as like a tribunal, like kind of in quotes, because they weren't really doing trials. It was kind of like, most people who came through were sentenced to death, and they imprisoned people just before they were sent to the guillotine. And you can tour this and visit it and see like the cell where Marie Antoinette was imprisoned before she was sent to be executed. And they have a lot of information about this kind of stuff. But it's it's right there. It's it's just not a short walk from Notre Dame. It's very much part of the city.
Amazing. All right, I'm excited to hear the next one. First, I'm just wondering, how does it feel to live in Paris as a writer? Isn't that every writer's sort of fantasy in some ways? Or it's one of the fantasies. Of course, you have like the remote cabin fantasy. There's several different like sort of cliche writer fantasies, right? And
I have to say, I did read recently Ernest Hemingway's A Movable Feast, which is his sort of account, written much after the fact, but his account of like living in Paris as a writer in the 1920s and like hanging out with Gertrude Stein and,
the scene,
and so the scene,
literary scene. Yeah.
And that was, so that was interesting, but he lived in a very different part of the city and it feels very, and I know, of course, there are a lot of writers here. I'm in touch with a couple of people, but I feel pretty like out in my own kind of little world out here. I would say I'm not kind of plugged into the writer scene, the writer community. I kind of like, I'm up here in the 19th, living my life and, taking my kids to school. But there's so much to explore. It's so rich. And I still, as many people as there are writing about Paris, writing in English about Paris, I still see huge gaps. I mean, there's just so much to write about. There's so much to talk about. And it's inspiring to be in a city where there's just so much life and so much happening. And especially after spending 5 years in a very remote, very beautiful, but very quiet corner of the French Alps, being in Paris it feels very stimulating. So
yeah, I'm sure that was an adjustment. I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it. I love, and Paris, the neighborhood here, it feels like such a community. That was a real surprise to me. You kind of hear like, Parisians are sort of grumpy and or standoffish. And I have had the complete opposite experience. It feels really like a very warm and welcoming community here that where we're set up. So,
do you get a little extra love if you even try a few words in French? I've heard that. That's
well, I wanted to say this actually at some point in this interview. So thank you for mentioning this. 1,000%, yes, you get a bit of extra love, and all you just need to know 2 words, honestly: bonjour and au revoir. Okay. And it's even more than please and thank you. You need to say hello and goodbye. And I see this so often is like I'm in a cafe or I'm in a shop or something, and there's an Anglophone, whether American or British or Canadian, knows an English speaker in front of me in line at a bakery, and they just walk up and they're like, "Can I have a baguette, please?" Or whatever, can I have a croissant? And it's like, oh, the person might say bonjour, and then they say, "Can I have a croissant?" And you're like, oh no, okay. If someone says bonjour to you and you don't say bonjour back, that is a big, 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 big no-no.
Plus, French, it's just fun.
It's
bonjour.
Fun. Exactly. Bonjour. It's bonjour. And the French people, it's like, Americans and I feel like British parents like put a real emphasis on please and thank you. French parents, you'll see them telling their kids off for not saying hello and not saying goodbye. It's like, did you say hello? Did you say hello? They said hello. Did you say hello?
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
It's like, and I feel like we as Anglophones, we don't. And so I'm always like, so I'll be the next person in line and I'll be like, listen, I'm so sorry. Do you know what? In America, we don't have this thing with bonjour. We don't have this thing with hello. Like we can say it or we cannot say it. And they're like, what did you say?
The greeting is being polite. That's greeting. The politeness is baked into the greeting.
Just say bonjour. Yeah. Say bonjour and then say, could I have a croissant? Or, you say bonjour and then maybe say, is English okay? Yeah,
we can remember that.
Yeah, ask if you can speak in English. Even if you ask in English, fine. Just say bonjour. And then when you leave, you say au revoir. When you leave a shop, and when you walk in, you say hello. And when you leave, you say au revoir. And this is like very, very, and if you do that, then they will be like, oh, interesting. This person respects me because it's really seen. And I'm embarrassed at how long it took me living in France it took me a couple of years, I think, before I really understood just how often you need to say bonjour. It's really like way more than you think. Like, bonjour and au revoir, say those words. And that will be, even if that's all you say, that will really go a long way toward just showing respect, showing the people that you respect them.
Great tip.
Anyway, so yeah.
2 words opens up a lot of doors.
Bonjour and au revoir.
Emotional doors, at least.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so 2 more things, and I don't want to spend too long on each one. So the second one is also, so we had a revolutionary Paris. the other one, I want to recommend specifically two tours, kind of on the same theme. And this is Black Paris. And I've done both these tours and they're excellent and fascinating. The first one is there's a woman named Ricky Stevenson who runs Black Paris tours. She's an American. She's lived in Paris for a long time, and she runs tours. Super interesting, and you're kind of hitting some of the main spots, like you're seeing the Champs-Élysées, you're seeing the Arc de Triomphe, but you're also exploring some of the really vibrant, very like West African neighborhoods here in Paris now. So it's a mix. Her tour is really a mix of the history of some prominent, Black people here in Paris, including Josephine Baker and Alexandre Dumas, who you might not know, the guy who wrote The Three Musketeers. His grandmother was an enslaved woman in Haiti.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And the Count of Monte Cristo. Right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
One of my favorite classic novels.
Oh, there you go. So his dad, so the father of Alexandre Dumas was a major general during the French Revolution, and he was the son of some marquis and a woman who was enslaved. So his son was Alexandre Dumas, who we know as the novelist and writer. So in Ricky Stevenson's story, you really dig into a lot of this stuff, which is really cool. I did that tour recently and loved it. Another tour you can do is Kevin Donat, who is a French. So Ricky Stevenson is American. Kevin Donat is French, lives in Paris, and he runs 3 tours on the left bank, on the right bank, and along the Seine. And I've done his left bank tour, again, and it's called Le Paris Noir. So Kevin Donat, Le Paris Noir. He does tours in French and in English. And fascinating, looking at, like, on the left bank tours about the history of sort of Black intellectuals in Paris. And the left bank is seen as sort of like this ritzy intellectual neighborhood. And he gets into sort of how, James Baldwin was living here. So some of the Black American influence, but also, of course, like Black French influence. And so, two tours that I've taken that I really enjoyed. And then again, just get to this, like, the stories of these cities are so rich and so diverse, and it's so rewarding to dig into histories that go beyond kind of the expected. And so I would highly recommend both of those tours.
I love that. We're going to link up to that. And it sounds like also you can hit in some of these tours, you might hit some of the common sites, but you're seeing them through a whole different lens.
Exactly. Like the Ricky Stevenson tour, it's really, you start off on the Champs-Élysées and you sing the Arc de Triomphe, and and what really struck me in doing that tour was seeing just how much the Black history of Paris is the history of Paris. I mean, it's really this is not like a little subset, you're learning about the Black role, the role that really important Black people played in the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. And then you see on the Champs-Élysées, you stop at the site where Thomas Jefferson came to Paris with Sally Hemings, who was his sort of unofficial wife, and where she stayed and had cooking classes in Paris with him. And so we're also talking about, the history of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings and how that links
That's
up here in
unexpected.
France.
Yeah,
totally. And you can stand there in front of like the spot where they stayed when they were in Paris, a long time ago now. But so really, really, really cool. Would definitely recommend both of those tours. And then maybe, all right, final one. This is just another kind of like fun and an unexpected thing that you can have in mind as no matter what you're doing in the city. And it's a type of street art that we have here in Paris.
Love street art.
Street art, yeah. So there's a guy, he's kind of like the French equivalent of Banksy, this sort of, kind of masked figure who does street art, kind of guerrilla street art style. And there's an app, so it's called Flash Invaders. And all over the city, there are more than 1,500 now pieces of art, and I can show you some pictures. But there's an app for it, and every time you see one, you can kind of like scan it on the app and get points. And it's just like they're all like little pixelated Space Invaders. So it's kind of inspired by the by the sort of whatever,
Yeah, like
1980s.
8-bit technology.
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
Of. Yeah.
Space Invaders, but they're all over the city, and some of them look like the actual little aliens, and there's also like the Cheshire Cat and like Bugs Bunny and Bart Simpson and like a Peter Pan image, I think, over near the Gare de l'Est, and you can just collect these, and it's it feels like a little sort of inside joke, and sometimes he does one, like there's one in Rue Saint-Anne, which is the kind of the little Tokyo here in Paris. And he has like it says Paris, Tokyo, and there's like a cute little like kitty cat. But it's a fun way to, again, just keep your eyes open to the unexpected. And this type of, it feels like very French way of being a little bit kind of, breaking the rules, but within a very structured framework. Like he has, like doing something unexpected and literally like illegal, but in a way that's artistic and within a very, he's not just doing anything. These things are very recognizable. So he's being sort of revolutionary and literally breaking the law, but in a way that's inspired by art and it's very structured, in terms of the actual paintings. So with my kids, it's a really fun way to actually inspire my kids to like walk around Paris, because it's like, oh, it's a new neighborhood. Let's see how many Space Invaders.
It's like a constant scavenger hunt.
100%. And it's, it's a fun way to keep your eyes open as you're going around the city.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I love that. That's, I'm looking at a few of the pictures of it now. I could definitely get into that little scavenger hunt. I love the juxtaposition that you get with 8-bit inspired art on like a modern building.
Totally.
Even a historic building. I guess he's pretty choosy in where he puts these things, but it's just a cool contrast,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, old meets new.
Yeah.
And art in unexpected places, and
a lot of metaphor built in, I think.
Yeah, and who is this?
Project.
There's even, I'm holding up a Spock.
Nice. 8-bit
Inspector's
Spock.
8-bit Spock. A little penguin.
Yeah.
It's fun.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show. Paige, you definitely delivered on this list of 5 unexpected things to do in Paris. Nailed it! Like I knew you would. Okay. We have a bit of a bonus to this episode, because I also asked you to, you've been all over France. So I was like, why don't we, while you're here, get 3 off the beaten track places to visit? And you mentioned having the experience of living in the small French village in the Alps, and then you had, the city thing, and I'm sure you've hit a lot of points in between. So yeah, I'm excited to hear your spots, because often if we're going to visit France, well, some people just go to Paris and fly out, but you might do some traveling around. So
yeah. And I think a lot of, Americans might think Paris, and then they'll think like Provence, come to Paris and go to Aix-en-Provence or Marseille or maybe Nice or Cannes or something, beautiful spots, classic spots, like definitely worth doing. But there's so much, this country, so, it's the reason it is the world's most visited country for a very good reason. There's so much to see. I have 3 spots that it might be a little unexpected things to explore in France, but outside of Paris. And the first one, I gotta give a shout out to the French Alps. This isn't my village. I'm going to say I'm not like talking explicitly about the little village where I lived for 5 years, but very nearby, there's a village called Morzine, which is beautiful. So Morzine, Morzine in the French Alps. I feel like when Americans think of the French Alps, they might think of Chamonix, first of all, which is a fascinating place, beautiful, stunning with Mont Blanc. It gets a lot of visitors. It can be really heavy. The crowds can be really heavy in Chamonix, whatever season you're visiting. Morzine is a beautiful village, not too far away, that has fantastic skiing, snowboarding in the winter. And in the summer, there's mountain biking, there's hiking, there's whitewater rafting. You can do sort of hut-to-hut hikes where you're, staying in a refuge, where you're getting a 3-course meal in the evening and really exploring the mountains. So, exploring, going to the French Alps and experiencing it in a way that's like, I mean, Morzine is a very popular destination for French families. Also, a lot of Brits come there too. But it's a really cool way to experience a very different aspect of French culture and French life in the French countryside.
Amazing. And it sounds like one of those sort of don't go here, go there instead, or like alternative destinations to like, you might get a lot of you might have access to some of the sort of same experiences without the crowds type of thing.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And, and Chamonix is beautiful and definitely worth visiting, but it's, and there's some things that, like the glaciers and stuff are really extraordinary there. But it does feel a little bit heavy now. And the traffic getting up there can be intense depending on the time of year. But yeah, Morzine is a wonderful alternative.
I love this. Yeah. This is why I wanted to get these from you specifically, because you have literally spent years and written a whole book on, a topic like over tourism and some of the issues around that. So I know when I'm getting some recommendations from Paige that they're going to be legit sort of, either alternative destinations or perhaps, less tourists, because that's part of the job in modern travel media, I would say now, if you're wanting to be conscious in terms of what you share, would you agree that part of the job might be, well, it's like a double-edged sword, right? You get people sharing these places on social media and then they blow up because it's perhaps it just goes viral or whatever. And then all of a sudden you end up in a place there's no infrastructure for the crowds that are coming. But then also, as a journalist or a writer, I should say, you kind of also do want to promote some of the lesser known places so people will visit them. So it's like this sort of fine line.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's being in a position of being able to share recommendations. I mean, like I'm doing right now, or like, you can do on social media or as a journalist writing about a place. It's a responsibility that I take very seriously. And in mentioning Morzine, like why did I choose Morzine as opposed to another place? It has, I know, well, it's a beautiful place to visit. I've been there many times. They have the infrastructure to welcome people, right? They want visitors. The economy relies on visitors. They're eager to welcome visitors. They have the infrastructure to welcome people. From what I've seen, from what I've heard and experienced, they're not overwhelmed. And so I feel comfortable sharing that and encouraging people to go check it out. But yeah, it's something to do with care.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's good to hear your sort of methodology behind the selection as well. So cool. All right, we got two more.
Okay, so going from the mountains to the coast. Now I'm going to mention the French beautiful small city of La Rochelle, which is on the Atlantic coast of France, and a beautiful city. It's both, at once like an ancient maritime spot, like an ancient port with this medieval lighthouse that's still standing that you can explore. But it's also a university town. So you have like a really young kind of fun vibe, lots of kind of bars and restaurants and stuff happening at night. Beautiful old town that's just like, ancient, like cobblestone streets with lots of little cafes and shops and fun just to sort of explore. A lot of beautiful beaches that you can access, including there's a beach kind of right there in town. But if you drive a little bit farther out of town, there are lovely beaches to explore. There's a really world-class, it's not huge, but absolutely top quality aquarium right there along the city's like coastline. It's like a fun like beach getaway, easy to access on the train from Paris. And if you're looking for, you want to explore like a French coastal town, and you don't want to go to a place that's sort of like overloaded with people on the Côte d'Azur or, on the Mediterranean coast, check out La Rochelle because it has really a nice mix of like landscape, interesting history and just a fun vibe.
Amazing. Okay. That's great. I'm just bookmarking things left and right here. All right.
And okay, and finally, this is, I'm going to mention the French city. So kind of going, so La Rochelle is sort of a small city on the coast, but more seen in the mountains. And this is a bigger city, but one that I feel like doesn't get the attention it deserves. And it's the French city of Lille, which is in the north of France. It's actually where they hosted all of the basketball for the French Olympics, like all the basketball.
How do you spell that?
Lille.
Okay.
So it's really not very far from Paris. I want to say like driving, it was like, a couple of hours, on the train, probably less than that. And it's this northern French city that feels like this weird mix. It almost feels British, almost feels Flemish, but it's very French. So it feels kind of like you're accessing a sort of different part of French culture. Again, like a beautiful old town, like cobblestone streets, the sort of like wattle and daub type buildings that you might associate with kind of like Tudor England sort of thing. There's a fantastic contemporary art museum called the Piscine de Roubaix, which is like just outside of Lille, but they've taken this like old pool, like an old municipal swimming pool, which was beautifully designed and transformed into this modern art museum with a lot of sculpture and stuff. And you can see, like, in visiting there, I mean, especially compared to La Rochelle, which is part of Nouvelle-Aquitaine, and Morzine, which is, in Haute-Savoie, you can really just get a feel for the different cultures that exist within this same country, because Lille feels very much like its own, it feels very much like you're verging on Northern Europe there. And so it's a fun city. I think is overlooked and not far from Paris, and some cool art and history to explore there. So I would recommend Lille. Yeah.
I'm a Paige McClanahan fan. Sorry. Is that like the Beliebers? Is that going to be your new? I'm making her blush.
That's the first I've ever heard. Wow, I'm flattered. I'm flattered, Jason.
No, I'm bringing that up because I do follow your newsletter. And if you like the recommendations and the sort of the content you heard today, Paige is a wonderful writer. Of course, she's got the book we mentioned. And where's the best place for people to find the newsletter and everything? Is it your Instagram? Is that just kind of follow you there?
Yeah. Come find me on Instagram, Paige McClanahan. And yeah, I recently relaunched my newsletter. So excited to be just sharing some thoughts on travel, some travel tips. And yeah, just want to be like continuing this conversation. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So if you're a fellow McClanahan fan, go ahead and check. Sorry, I just had to do it one more time. I couldn't resist. No, this was great. Incredible episode as always, and definitely appreciate your time. We'll link up to everything in the show notes, of course, if you find yourself in France or Paris, and perhaps if you have questions, I'm sure Paige, you can DM her on Instagram.
For sure.
Thank you for being so generous with your time. Thanks for taking the time to put together a killer list for us. I had a blast. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. I had a lot of fun too. And hope to do it again sometime.
Sounds good. Take care.
Bye-bye.
There you have it. Special thanks to Paige McClanahan for stopping by the show. I can definitely recommend her book, The New Tourist, out on paperback now. And of course, we linked up to her website if you want to learn more about her work, follow her on the socials and so on. I mentioned Paris being in the top 10 ranking of the 10 most visited cities last year, according to Euromonitor. I found these statistics on Wikipedia. And it's funny because I pulled this up and I just, in my head, thought, Paris will probably be number 1, 2, or 3. But no, it was number 9. Number 1, 2, and 3 were Bangkok, Istanbul, and London, with over 32 million visitors, over 23 million, and over 21 million, respectively. And surprisingly, off the list, Rome. I was actually surprised to see that Rome was not in the top 10, at least according to these rankings. So interesting stuff. All right, before I let you go, a couple things. I did want to remind you about the newsletter, zerototravel.com/newsletter. It's free. Keep in touch with the community off the pod. Speaking of the community, that's why I make this show, of course. And I love to hear from listeners. So if you haven't gotten in touch, you want to reach out, you can always drop me an email, jason@zerototravel.com. I did get one from Lynn, and I wanted to share a little bit about her story because I find it so inspiring. And first of all, she grabbed me at the subject header, which was hello from a longtime listener, now full-time traveler. I'm going to share a little bit from this email because she shared many different parts of her story, but I wanted to just edit this for brevity so you could get a bit of the gist of what I found so inspiring. So anyway, she said, my husband and I have been full-time travelers now going into our 4th year. That seems so crazy. I wish I could remember exactly when I found your podcast, but it was years ago. I remember listening to you as I painted the bathroom with no idea we would or even could travel as we have. It's definitely a long sordid tale, but here we are now slow traveling through Asia in our 36th country. She goes on to say, last December, my husband and I went back to our hometown of Boise, Idaho to spend Christmas with our kids for the first time in 3 years. Long story short, shortly after we arrived, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was very lucky. The tumor was small, slow growing, and caught early. Through nothing but God's grace, I had amazing medical care that concluded for now with radiation. For a while, we thought our full-time travel had come to an abrupt halt, and we were thinking of what alternatives there were. However, treatment went well, and my doctors cleared me to travel for now. We left in mid-May for Hawaii, then Indonesia. I feel like I'm struggling with strength, which is a bit hard. Of course, my goal is to heal and rebuild my strength and stamina. I try to remember to take one day at a time, and it's only been a few short months. We hike a lot, and feeling that my body's weaker is a strange place to be. We purposely resumed our travels in Bali, went to a lot of terrific yoga and meditation classes, and hoping to find the same in Thailand. The heat and the humidity in Asia has also made a difference. Still, all in all, I'm feeling well. She goes on to say, from one traveler who you have inspired and helped nearly every step of the way, again, a huge thank you. So thank you, Lynn. Your email really inspired me, and I have invited Lynn on the podcast, so maybe you'll get to hear the full story down the road. I'd love to share the community stories, just the stories from the listeners who have been able to find a way to incorporate travel into their lives. And, I think it's no small thing to continue traveling after having cancer treatment, even though you get the medical clearance and everything. But I'm sure it could still be scary to get back out there, not sure how you're going to feel, if anything's going to pop up, things like that. So really inspiring to me. And I just want to thank Lynn for sharing that story. And I hope you enjoyed hearing another amazing story from this incredible community that we have here with the Zero to Travel listeners. So thank you so much for listening. I will leave you with a quote from Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm not French. I'm not good with the French. Anyway, he said, do you think that I count the days? There is only one day left, always starting over. It is given to us at dawn and taken away from us at dusk. Talk about a reminder for living in the moment. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.